Sure, it's full of spiders, that's what's wrong with it. Almost killed Grogmar and me when they showed up. I'm worried that they'll come out of the mine looking for food soon. Then we're in even bigger trouble.
Tamriel is home to many creatures that would never pass for ordinary in the real world. Chaurus Reapers, Mammoths, Atronachs, Gargoyles, Giants, Mudcrabs, Scamps, but this doesn't even begin to cover it. There is a whole species that many arachnophobes detest, and that would be the family of spiders, or more precisely Frostbite Spiders. Frostbite Spiders are infamously known for their creepy introduction into Skyrim's world building and general vibe. The first Frostbite Spider we do end up encountering just looks terrifying and always catches newer players off guard. I can assure you that many players went through the same dilemma of going up against what seemed like an insectoid behemoth at the time. Frostbite spiders are indigenous to Skyrim and its frigid environment, but this is exactly why scholars have taken it upon themselves to indicate them as frostbite spiders, because of their thermal adaptability. There are a couple of varying subspecies, but ultimately all of them are called frostbite spiders. It mainly depends on how large they end up becoming during their life cycle. They are extremely territorial and will without a doubt attack on sight. They are also widely known for their ferocity in certain situations. Their habitat of choice is usually a damp but subtly lit cavern, and this applies to various dungeons and mines scattered throughout Skyrim's mountainous terrain. One peculiar affiliation frostbite spiders in particular have is that with the Falmer. The Falmer treat them as a viable force to coexist with, or maybe even as a potential pet. And that's why frostbite spiders are occasionally seen inhabiting Dwemer ruins alongside the Falmer. These spiders are one of the many insects in Skyrim, but frostbite spiders are technically the only species of arachnids that we get to actively fight. Frostbite spiders are exceptionally aggressive, and that means that if you somehow manage to aggravate at least one tiny frostbite spider, the entire pack would come in swarming in a full-on frontal assault. Their relationship with the Falmer indicates that they might be domesticable. Either that, or years of coexistence with the Falmer slightly altered their feral nature. Their anatomy slightly differs from most of the other insects in Tamriel. Now, I'm not referring to their anatomical structure, that without a doubt resembles that of a spider, but what they've successfully adopted is a much thicker layer of skin, defensive barbs, and dense outlines of fur on each leg. The thicker layer of skin and dense outlines of fur most likely serve as an additional layer of thermal resistance, which allowed them to peacefully reside in Skyrim's frigid conditions to begin with. The defensive barbs, on the other hand, are probably the result of harsh evolution. Every frostbite spider inherits two frontal mandibules that act as their main offensive weapons. Under the mandibules is their mouth, from which they ruthlessly spit a specialized venom that impacts health and stamina simultaneously. This venom is known as frostbite venom. Their attacks consist of them utilizing their front legs in an effort to lunge their mandibules into their desired target. They also have a distinct and symbolizing screech before attacking a foe, which is briefly followed up by a clattering noise of their mandibules. Frostbite spiders probably started out as any other insects, fairly minuscule and tame. And this state of fragility presumably prompted them to evolve into a competitor that could realistically keep up with the ordinary members of Skyrim's environmental food chain. Sometime during their rapid evolutionary morphing, other members of the more dominant sectors of the food chain must have slowly thinned due to the lack of food, leaving room for a competitor that has effective and lucrative ways of survival. Seeing as how the frostbite spider was nearly at peak evolutionary standards when this happened, it received a large influx of excess food, which allowed their organisms to further grow in size with every new batch of newly hatched spiders. This would eventually result in the birth of giant frostbite spiders. These genetically altered spiders are rare to come by, but a large pack of frostbite spiders is sure to have one tenaciously leading it. According to the wiki, there are 3 types of frostbite spiders: regular frostbite spiders, wounded frostbite spiders, and at their peak size, giant frostbite spiders. Regular frostbite spiders are divided into 4 subtypes. There are smaller and larger sizes of regular frostbite spiders, which are smaller spiders with a tint of red and smaller spiders with a tint of white. The same applies to the larger size. But the larger specimens of regular frostbite spiders have much more potent venom, dealing 15 damage points plus 5 points of poison. The smaller sizes are usually found patrolling the wilderness of Falkreath and the Rift, whilst the larger sizes preferably guard their lair of origin. Both of these subtypes resemble the height of a wolf, and they ordinarily appear in smaller groups. Moving on to wounded frostbite spiders. Wounded frostbite spiders vary in size, but they're ultimately larger than regular frostbite spiders, but smaller than giant frostbite spiders, which relatively puts them at a medium. They are rare to find and don't present as much of a threat as giant frostbite spiders. They're commonly labeled as wounded due to the fact that a specific entity fought it before the player. I mean, it definitely doesn't make them less intimidating though. Moving on to the giant frostbite spider. These are formidable and frightening creatures. They stand slightly taller than a regular man and are much wider than the common creature. They are always found guarding lairs and caves where they reside in. Frostbite spiders apparently abide by a hierarchy, and from our perspective, the giant frostbite spider is assuredly at the top of that system. Higher leveled players are an indicator for them to spawn more commonly inside of dungeons. Their desired places of residence is usually amongst the Falmer, Haygraven witches, and master vampires. I'm still in the dark about what kind of a connection the Falmer managed to establish with the frostbite spiders, but they're obviously a force to be reckoned with. Regarding Haygraven witches and master vampires, they probably subject the spiders to a series of alteration and illusion magic spells to ensure that the spiders are obedient enough. By the time the player hits level 80, giant frostbite spiders start venturing out into the wilderness. This is largely due to the player's widespread eradication of their numerous lairs across Skyrim. This undoubtedly angered them, seeing as how nearly all of their minions get stomped by the player, and this probably urged them to start leaving their cozy homes to hunt. And this wild hunt of theirs is unusual, seeing as how their smaller frostbite spider minions usually deliver them food, but without someone to fulfill that task, giant frostbite spiders eventually resorted to scouring the wilderness. The entrances to their lairs are usually covered in a thick wall of webbing, whilst the entire lair itself is coated in strewn web, which allows the spiders to easily maneuver up and about the lair. Spider egg sacs are also located sporadically. Certain ones can be opened and harvested, but they're generally sealed tighter than the Oblivion Realm. Spiders have a specific way of dealing with prey and redistributing it to the rest of their pack. If an unfortunate soul decides to stumble upon a spider, their carcass will be brought back to the lair, where the head spider will make sure to fully coat the body in webs and then leaving it strung up for days on end. This ensures the successful preservation of their food. Kronvanger Cave in Skyrim is the only location that predominantly houses frostbite spiders. They're nearly always seen inhabiting small grottos and sectors of caves. And one ironic fact to note is that they are vulnerable to their own venom, which is just hysterical, I guess. The only domesticated frostbite spider in Skyrim is Liz, a regular frostbite spider that resides in a tiny sector of the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary. She was domesticated and cared for by Gabriella, a Dark Brotherhood member. This spider is categorized as a Dark Brotherhood member and is docile towards the player. This, in my personal opinion, is magnificent. I mean, when's the last time you got to pet a frostbite spider? The last named frostbite spider in Skyrim is in fact hostile, and may be one of the toughest frostbite spiders known to Skyrim. Its name is Nimhe. It occupies the entrance of a Dwemer ruin located in the depths of Markarth, Nechuan Zel. Her name roughly translates to the Poisoned One, and this nickname was given to her by the workers that were responsible for uncovering the entrance to the inner sanctum of Nechuan Zel. Nimhe or Nimhe is a unique giant frostbite spider. She's the bane of lower leveled melee characters. She outputs insane amounts of damage up front and is adamant on ruthlessly guarding the entrance to Nechuan Zel. Her fearsomeness is most definitely a factor that was brought upon by its old age and constant seclusion. Nechuan Zel wasn't dug up for a long while, and this probably left her tightly trapped. To sum it all up, frostbite spiders are certified pests to the citizens of Skyrim. Frostbite spiders make it their goal to invade mines, poison, harass, and kill travelers. They constantly disrupt the balance of the food chain, and not to mention their awful taste in the art of interior decoration. I certainly believe that their species flourishingly profited off of the extinction and mishaps of Skyrim's other creatures, but by the end of the 4th era, their numbers rapidly start declining, and they resort to hiding as a means of survival. Complete extinction is presumably impossible, but this is why regulatory methods of eradication have to at least be implemented, whether that be in the form of a demigod that can shout fire or potent pesticides. You decide. Stay cinematic, folks.